Welcome to the Art of Black Miami podcast, organized by Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. Our stories introduce emerging and experienced artists who make Miami an exciting place to live and visit. I'm Rosie Gordon-Wallace, curator and arts advocate. Miami is my home since the 1970s. My passion is cultivating the vision and talent of contemporary artists from the Caribbean diaspora, artists of color, and immigrant artists. Many cultures and languages come together to shape the character of Miami. Today we introduce you to Nate D. His signature murals have become landmarks in the Miami landscape. The colors of his Haitian heritage and gestures inspired by his formal art training come together in his figurative paintings.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. A native of South Florida.
Yes.
That seems to be quite rare nowadays,
Yeah,
right?
there's not many of us. A lot of people are from other places, either from the Caribbean or from especially the Northeast. But nowadays, since the pandemic, they're coming from all over.
That's right. And where were you raised in South Florida?
I was born and raised in Broward County, Plantation, to be exact.
Many artists will identify one place in time, something that points them either in the direction of art or validating the fact that they're an artist. Is there such a moment for you?
Yes, definitely. It was when I was around elementary school age. I had a babysitter. His family was friends with my family. And he would watch us when my parents needed someone to babysit the kids. One of the things is he was a college-age kid, and he actually had a job for the local newspaper where he would do illustrations in the editorials section. So sometimes they would drop us off at the house and they would leave us with the babysitter. And then he would turn on the TV. My sisters would watch TV, and then he would just work on his drawings and his sketches for work. And I would see it. For me, it was amazing. I was in awe. It was like the closest thing that I could say to seeing magic in real life. Him starting off with a blank white piece of paper, and then 30 minutes later, he's creating entire worlds, universes, people. I fell in love with it. And he would notice after the second or third time he'd watch us that while my sisters are spending the whole time in the next room watching TV, I'd just be sitting at the table watching him draw. He would give me paper, give me pencil, and he just let me, doodle, have fun on my own. And then he made the mention to my parents. And to their credit, my mother saw that, and then she took it, and then she started immediately putting me in different art programs locally. And that was the time that I fell in love with art. And since then, I haven't really looked back.
I love that you studied at FIU. You have 2 degrees. Do you want to share that with us?
When I went to college, I knew I wanted to do art because there was always a love for art. After changing my major multiple times, I ended up settling on getting an AA in visual arts. And then I transferred to FIU, got my BS, Bachelor's of Science in Art Education, and then went back for my Master's of Science in Art Education.
So you must be either a friend, mentee of David Chan.
Yes.
Yeah?
I consider him my mentor. He's been a very strong supporter, one of my biggest fans. I really think that the professional artist that I am now, I am that because of David Chang.
Oh, that's lovely to hear.
I paint the way I paint because of David Chang. When I first got to FIU, I wasn't sure because I was getting pulled in different directions on whether to do straight visual arts and get a BFA and an MFA. And I initially went in under art education. He's the reason why I stayed, because the artist that he was, I was so impressed and blown away by it. I realized this is the person who needs to teach me.
As you develop your style, there are certain influences that inform the work. What are some of those influences to you?
At first, I was looking at a lot of street art. I love street art. And then at the time, there was a term that was going around called lowbrow art. And that was around the time that I fell in love with painting. I had a professor at FIU, and she brought us to a gallery in Hollywood, and I saw lowbrow art for the first time, and I fell in love with it. From there, I decided I need to go and start looking at more painting styles, more artists, really amp up my art history so I can figure out what I want to do with this art. So one of the things I came across was the Art Nouveau movement. So that was a movement that came out of France. There was a specific artist, and he actually wasn't a French artist, which people don't know. Some people call him Alphonse Mucha. Some other people pronounce his name Muha. He did a lot of work in the Art Nouveau movement where they use a lot of pattern work, a lot of filigree work, and it's the use of visual elements and visual aesthetics within that style that's used in architecture, in furniture design, in interior design, in poster design, things like that. So I love that. And that is why when you look at my work now, I have a graphic element in the art. I love graphic design. So because of that, I like putting a lot of flat elements and juxtaposing it and contrasting it with really rendered, three-dimensional, traditional forms that I put in my work, because that's how I'm formally trained. Even the splatters, that's a nod to that.
And I want to ask you about your motivation with colors.
I was always gravitating to really bright colors and highly saturated colors and playing with the different effects that I could create using colors. And I didn't even put it together till one day when I was still in undergrad. I was in a group show and one of my friends came to me and said to me, "Hey, I always know your work is the brightest work in the room." So when he said that, I said, "No, what are you talking about?" And then I looked at all the pieces, and I mean, oddly enough, it was my work jumping out at me. And then I realized when I started looking at the colors I gravitated to, and I started making the connection with my background, I realized it's because I was in a house growing up seeing Caribbean work all the time. My family is Haitian. My mother's born in New York, but Haitian background. My father, he was born in Haiti. And it's just my exposure to Haitian art. And Haitian art is very bright, very vibrant. Even if they're dealing with subject matter that is intense or heavy, it's done so in a way that if you didn't know the history behind it, you would think, oh, this piece is a celebration. And it might not necessarily be a celebration.
And the reference to your Haitian heritage and culture also explains the figurative images that you have in your work.
Yes, a lot of the work deals with the human figure. It's usually juxtaposed with nature, flora, or fauna, which is animals. And it's always under a cultural umbrella. So usually those animals have meanings within the given culture that I'm addressing or touching upon in the work. A lot of times, if it's not a completely physical animal painted into the piece, a person's wearing a mask, which is a representation of the animal and then of what us as human beings imbue on these animals in terms of meaning. For example, if I say a lion, you already have all these associations that come with the idea of a lion: regal, the king, power, strong. Whatever theme that I want to touch upon, I start researching different animals and what they symbolize, and that's how I choose. I love the use of mixed media. I respect artists who do it. I've wanted to incorporate that in some of my work. Later pieces I'm going into now are the first major departure from me doing paintings and me doing murals, where I'm also creating three-dimensional forms.
Tell us more about the three-dimensional form.
I'm basically using a lot of the imagery that I have in my paintings, but now I'm creating sculptures that'll be going on walls. I'm still in the process of creating a bunch of busks that'll be going on tables and at different sizes. It's just a new iteration.
What material are you using?
What I'm doing now is 3D printing. I do a million different designs. I found a printer that I like their work, and we'll go back and forth and we'll discuss the way it's supposed to look. And once I approve it, they send me the blanks, and then I'll go in and hand paint them and embellish them and add things to them.
Infusing technology in the work is really going to expand how we experience the work. Now you're a muralist, and we know that you work on large spaces. And as a painter, you bring us in to the work, and now you're taking us out of the work.
Yes.
This is dynamic.
It's something that I've always loved. I remember when I was in undergrad, I took a sculpture class, and it was mostly hand building. It was clay sculpture. So when I did that class, I realized you have to think about it differently than you think about paintings. How's it going to be viewed from all angles? What is the meaning behind it? The challenge of using different materials. Do the materials work well together? So there was so many different things that you had to think about. And that's what made me fall in love with it. So I've always wanted to go back and start doing three-dimensional things. My first steps in that direction was one of my first solo shows here in Little Haiti with Muse at their campus space.
Right.
I did a series of paintings, and then I coupled it with models walking around and they were wearing handmade masks. I loved that experience of hand painting them, creating them, figuring out ways to put them together, and then also the show performance aspect of them walking around with it. So from there, I knew I have to do more three-dimensional work.
What was the response of the audience?
People wanted to buy the masks, but I was telling them, no, the masks are for sale. People were like, no, I'll take the mask right now. How much? I mean, as a creative, it's always great when people want what you create, because a lot of the times, especially when you're in the studio space, you're in a space that is somewhat isolated and you're with your thoughts and you don't know how people are going to feel about it. When I'm on the walls, I always interact with the public, which is one of the reasons why I started doing the murals.
So in 2014, you shifted to outdoor murals and street art. How did that come about?
So before that point, I would like to stay in my safe zone. I like to do what I knew because I knew how to do it.
As a studio artist?
Yes, as a studio artist. Every once in a while, I would get opportunities to do other things outside of my wheelhouse, whether it be live painting. And one of the things also happened to be muralism. And I got a couple of opportunities to do it, but I would say no all the time because I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of doing it because it was just so new to me. And so anyway, fast forward to 2014, there was an artist. Her name is Kaz. She was also a muralist, also a street artist. I knew her because we'd been in a lot of group shows at the time. We met each other on the art scene. And she was curating a show during Basel at that time. She used to run the show at the Armory, and this is the first time she did it in Wynwood. And when I went to drop off my work for the show, she said, listen, I talked to the owners of the building. They said it's all right for us to do murals on the outside of the building, so I think you should do a mural. I said, Kaz, I'm not going to do a mural. I don't do murals. You could do a mural, get some other people to do murals, and I'll see you at the opening. She said, no, listen, that's ridiculous. I've seen your work. Your work would be great on a wall. I think you should do it. I said, I don't know, Kaz. She's like, no, I don't want to hear it, Nate. What you're going to do is you're going to paint this wall because all these people want this wall, but I'm not going to give them the wall. I'm going to give it to you. So don't waste my wall, and I'll see you tomorrow. So when she said that, I said, okay, I guess I have to go in and paint this wall. So then the next day going in and painting the wall, I ended up doing a piece. The piece wasn't even that big compared to what I'm doing now. But one of the things I fell in love with was that as I'm painting the piece, people were coming up to me off the street and just talking to me, interacting with me, asking me questions about the work. A lot of them were asking me questions about myself. So that element of creating a conversation around the art with the people who see it and the relevance of it, that's what I also fell in love with. And now that's most of what I do. That's what basically pays the bills. That love for the muralism and the murals that I do and the feedback, it's because of that point. And what it also taught me is that if there's something that I'm afraid of, I should do it, because on the other side of that fear is where you'll find the growth.
Can you select one huge mural, tell us where it is, and bring us into the mural?
One of the biggest ones, and it represented me coming full circle, is the piece that I did for FIU in Wynwood. Initially, they wanted to wrap the building. Then one of their head designers over at FIU said, listen, if we're going to be in Wynwood and it's a place known for the murals, why wouldn't we have a mural done and put on the wall? And moreover, why wouldn't we have an alumni of the school? They reached out to me. They said they knew about my work. They knew that I was a muralist, and it was a process of me going back and forth with that same lead designer and coming up with the imagery. And it was a mix of his vision and my vision, so it was another collaborative situation. It's on the Mana complex, and it's a huge building. It's probably one of the bigger pieces there, and it just jumps out at you. It's my colors, my splatters, my forms, me juxtaposing the graphic elements with the flora and the fauna. The mural focused mostly on the school mascot, which is a panther. We did it multicolored, and it's surrounded by trees and plants. All the plants are native to South Florida, Miami specifically, a lot of Everglades plants. And then there are trees behind it and silhouettes of the Everglades.
And by the way, the FIU Panthers are not doing badly.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Panther pride.
I think that there's a special audience for these kinds of murals that you are now known for. The sports fans. Do you have anything up your sleeve that you want to share with us?
This year marked the 50-year anniversary of the Miami Dolphins undefeated team, as well as Nike in general. So they commissioned me to go in and create a mural in one of the tunnels. And it basically paid homage to the 50-year legacy of Nike and the 50-year legacy of the Dolphins.
As you talk about the work, I feel the excitement in the studio. Share with our audience how art has been a catalyst for your life.
For the longest time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but I realized that all the great things that have happened to me is because of art. I've traveled around the world because of art. I've met some of the most interesting and amazing people in different countries that I still have friendships with to this day. It's put me in places and it's given me the life that I'm not sure I would have had if I didn't do anything else. That goes to show that if you really do what you love, you figure out how to make it work.
2019, you returned to Haiti, and you hadn't gone there since you were a small child. What brought you there?
So there's a group out there called Festa Graffiti, and they've been running a lot of art programs, basically focusing on street art. They brought me in to do a mural as one of the festivals that they were doing. I think in 2019 was the second year they had done it, and they were bringing in artists from across the world to do it. They reached out to me through my Instagram, and they asked me if I would be interested in doing it. So I feel like I said yes before they even asked the question if I wanted to come. My parents brought me to Haiti as a child, even though I was born here in the United States. And then I wasn't there for long and I was really young, so I really had no memories of it. Everything I knew was through family members, their stories, and them telling me about Haiti. I have sisters who used to go all the time. I just never made the time to go, I would say. But after that experience, I've actually been to Haiti 2 to 3 more times, also through Festa Graffiti, working on other projects. And now it's one of those places I love, and I just feel like I'm home when I'm there.
You are creating murals at the festival.
It was actually a really cool experience. I was in an area in Port-au-Prince called Paco. It was very interesting because there was some civil unrest, but it wasn't the way it is now. I had the ability to walk the streets and talk to people and see kids that were going to school, kids that were studying after school. So I decided that I wanted to do a mural that focused on the idea of us investing in the young generation for the future. So I ended up doing a large-scale mural of a little girl. She could either be reading a book or studying. She's basically leaning forward, sitting at a table, looking at a book, and behind her is a Hispaniola trogon, which is Haiti's national bird, flying to the right and up. And on the left side of her is a huge hibiscus, and then there's my splatters intermingled within a lot of the visual elements of the piece. And it also says the word monte, which means rise in Creole. So it's that same idea that we invest in these kids so that they could rise. And as they're rising, so will the country rise.
So, Nate, you do a lot of community work. Your murals speak volumes and activate communities in different ways. Are you doing anything that you want to share with a special project in the community?
There's a nonprofit in South Miami that's run by my friend. Her name is Sharon Coleman. And she reached out to me to run workshops during the summer. A lot of those kids, they don't have any exposure to the art world that's happening in Miami. They've never been north of Kendall. I've done murals with them where they help create the mural. She does a lot of cultural programming. For example, one year they did The Wiz, and they needed someone to do some stagecraft and stage painting. So I went in there and I painted the backdrop and had the kids come out and help. And these kids love it. They're hungry for something, and they don't even necessarily know what they're hungry for until they get it. I love the exposure that I'm providing in terms of bringing my art style and bringing these opportunities for them to express themselves creatively.
Almost every conversation that we've had with artists highlights the need to work with young people for the next generation. You want to say where you're teaching?
So I teach digital design, and I also teach painting and drawing at a high school called Felix Varela Senior High. It's in West Kendall. I've been there for about 15 years, and I enjoy it. Not all of them have gone on to be artists, but some of them have gone on to do creative things. Some of them reach out to me and they tell me that they love my class and they tell me how it influenced them or what they loved about it. When I see things like that, that's when it tells me what I'm doing is worth it.
This was an Art of Black Miami podcast sponsored by the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. I am Rosie Gordon-Wallace. We recorded this conversation in the historic neighborhood of Little Haiti, a mecca for Black art and culture. Art of Black Miami highlights the year-round art and culture scene in Miami's heritage neighborhoods and across communities in Greater Miami and Miami Beach. If you are enjoying our stories, visit artofblackmiami.com to learn more. Engage us on social media, post and share using the hashtag #ArtofBlackMiami. The Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau is an accredited, independent, not-for-profit sales and marketing organization. GMCVB's mission is to attract visitors to Greater Miami and Miami Beach for leisure, business, and conventions. For up-to-date art events, promotions, and more information, visit artofblackmiami.com.